80s, there wasn't so much work going around, in the sense there was a big, massive depression, and I thought the best thing I can do is join the army.
The parachute regiment, 7th Parachute Regiment, sent a recruiting team to the depot, and I was hooked. I knew, well, that's for me. I got my name down on the list, and I went for selection in May of 1973.
There is a lot of political stuff going on with Northern Ireland veterans at the moment. A lot of veterans are getting dragged up for cases that happened, and this is why I don't want to be shown, and this is why I've got to be careful what I say, you know what I mean? It was my job to go on tours. Obviously, you don't go in the British Army to go on holiday, you go in the British Army to do a job. And one of them jobs is to accept that you're possibly going to go to war.
On tour, I have to say one had to be incredibly young, resilient and extremely fit, because it was absolutely exhausting. It was completely exhausting. It's beyond description just how tiring doing 11 days without seeing your bed is. So I found myself in the Falklands, in the resuscitation team in Ajax Bay, and in 4.5 weeks I had 774 casualties came through my team. An officer in a British regiment had come in, and an Argentinian soldier had shot him through the back of the head, and the bullet hit him in the back of the head, came out the top of his head, and it had lifted a third of his brain out, and his brain was sitting on the top of his head. I sat with him for between 8 and 9 hours with a shell dressing on the top of his brain, holding his brain in until he got into theatre. When we went out on a patrol, obviously there was always the threat that we were going to get killed. We knew that. We got tip-offs for IEDs, improvised explosive devices, usually car bombs. One of the tricks of the IRA was car bombs. It could be anywhere really. It could be in a wall, it could be in a bin. Imagine being in Britain and bombs going off all the time. One of my biggest fears on patrol was the nail bombs. Nasty device. That goes off, you're blown to smithereens, like, you know. Someone had called in and said that they'd seen some activity by the IRA planting a bomb on such and such a road, yeah, which was a main supply route for British soldiers to go out on the checkpoints on the border, yeah. And I remember as a young soldier thinking, you know, this 6-mile stretch of road, anywhere possible on that road could be instant death, you know, blown up any second. Thankfully, one of the lads spotted something that was out of the ordinary. It was by the side of the road, it had been disturbed. They sent the dog forward, but as the dog went forward, the IRA, unknown to us, were watching, waiting, and then they detonated the bomb. I can tell you that when I came back off my second tour in Northern Ireland, I had spent 4 months doing absolutely nothing but covert operations against the provisional IRA. We were choppered out at last light. We went into a hide area and went defensive, went into an ambush position, and we waited on the IRA. And I did that solid for 4 months. And I can only describe the feeling of being back after about 2 weeks. It was like a junkie absolutely dying for a heroin fix. The only thing I ever wanted to do was not be with my wife. It was to be back sleeping in a ditch or a derelict house or woodland, you know, in an ambush. We were put onto VC-10s and flown back to Bryce Norton and buses back to Aldershot. We had our weapons taken off us, put in the armoury and sent home in short order. I got home and I can remember I had a little baby girl who was about 18 months old at the time, and I sat down and I burst into tears.
When I went home on leave, I was still on patrol.
I was like trained to look out for stuff, and I had to give myself a check, you know, I'm at home, it's peaceful, no one's going to blow me up here, no one's going to shoot me here, no one's going to spit at me here. But then reality kicks in, I got a job, and working with civilians wasn't like being with my mates in the army in a platoon. There wasn't the same banter, there wasn't the same comradeship, you know what I mean? There wasn't the same loyalties, it was a, you know, a total readaptation, and I couldn't really talk to anyone about what I'd been through because having a family that didn't understand. Back then it was like you keep that sort of stuff to yourself, you know. So you didn't really have anyone to talk to either. And my solution, I guess, was turning to the drink and going out and just trying to mask it and trying to accept it and trying to get on with life the best way I could, you know. Come back out and I was homeless, and I don't blame anyone, you know, because I'd pushed them all away. I didn't know what was wrong with me, and I ended up sleeping in a tent, and I remember crawling in that tent that night. It was winter, it was cold, and I thought, do you know what? This is a man that's had a mortgage, a massive house, beautiful little family, and I've lost everything, you know, I've pushed everything away from me. What's wrong with me? This shouldn't be happening.
I served predominantly in Northern Ireland and one tour in Cyprus in '74, something like that, yeah. PTSD is a strange thing. For many years I didn't even know that I had PTSD. I just thought I was just out of tune, to put a better word, you know, not right. But then later on, PTSD sort of like reared its head in the sense that I wasn't able to control my temper. I wasn't able I started getting very depressed. And it had such an impact on me that I lost a couple of businesses. Most important thing that I lost was my family. And once people know that you've had some sort of a mental health issue, you become more or less an untouchable. Like, you know, normal people wouldn't want to employ you in case you flip, in case you do things that ordinary people don't do.
It's like having a huge boil on your back. It builds up and it builds up and it builds up, and you suppress it, you hide it. And when you're no longer under this pressure, it suddenly comes to the surface. And it was probably maybe 2 years later, I had hit the worst point ever. My nightmares were hitting me 4 and 5 nights a week. And it wasn't just one, it was several times a night. My then girlfriend was a teacher, and it didn't last all that long because I was waking up at, you know, 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, and then 4 o'clock, screaming, kicking, throwing the duvet off. And she had never seen anything like this in her life.
I remember going to the doctors at that time and saying, you know, I can't sleep, I don't know what's wrong with me. I remember that counsellor saying to me at that time, do you think you might have post-traumatic stress disorder? Now, straight away I just said no chance. That's bullshit. That is one of those made-up illnesses. I ain't got that. And I just stopped the counselling, didn't bother, yeah? Because let's face it, I hadn't been blown to bits, I hadn't seen my mates blown to bits. I'd seen a couple of incidents, but I thought, I ain't got PTSD. Kind of like had I guess you would like stress. They call it stress, don't they? I had a bit of a breakdown, just physically, mentally gone. I was just shattered. I remember trying to get some help from the dole, if you like, and they said I couldn't have any money, and then someone suggested, why don't you try one of the charities that help veterans?
I was living in the street, I was sofa surfing, and a friend of mine phoned me up and told me about combat stress to begin with. And the outreach officer from combat stress introduced me to Stull.
Got help, treatment, sort of like an understanding of the condition and kind of like acceptance, you know.
I was 19, 20 years old, ready to challenge the entire world at one time, just as these youngsters are today. Don't ever think you're too macho to go and get counselling. Don't ever think that it won't happen to you. It might not, but there's a damn good chance it will. The drug abuse and the very, very serious alcohol abuse will happen to you. It will. And I mean that 99%. It will.
I would only say to, you know, get help. Don't be like what I was for 20 plus years. Pride, suffering. Get help. You know, sort your life out, you know, while you're young enough. Don't do what I did, you know. I lost everything, you know.
Morgan O'Connell did explain to me, you'll never get over it. So he was right. But